follow-up from yesterday. There was a question, an unanswered question. Remember what the unanswered question was? Remember what the answer? There was one of the unanswered questions was when there was the use of madhu pate, what was the meaning? Remember that question? Well, there are different meanings. I had just, before the question was asked, I had assumed it meant the killer of the Madhu demon, Madhusudana. But not necessarily, because Madhusudana is not Madhupate or Madhupati. Here's two other references. Madhu Pati, one meaning is he's the master of the month of Madhu. One of the names for the month, the season of spring is Madhu. And then another name for Madhu is the city of Mathura, was previously known as Madhupuri. So Madhupati. So Lakshman became Shatrughna became the ruler because he finished the son of Madhu, Lavanasura. But then Krishna became, the lord of Madhu or Mathura. So it could mean any one of those things, probably some other ones. Take your favorite one. This will probably be enlivening and easy to listen to for our younger generation devotees about Grandfather Bhishma, because it has so much to do with Mahabharata and the intrigues of Mahabharata. So if I ask a question tomorrow morning, what do we know about, not tomorrow morning, tomorrow evening, what do we know about Grandfather Bhishma? Those of you that are paying attention tonight, you'll be able to answer that question. Hint. He's a pure devotee of Krishna. That's for starters. There's a nice painting which we'll see again and again on the right side, where Bhishma is dropped his bow and he's standing with his arms open, ready to take the chariot wheel. Arjuna smashed in his chest by Krishna. And there's Krishna blowing the conch shell, the chariot driver of Arjuna. But what do we know about Bhishma Dev? Besides, he's a pure devotee of Krishna. He likes bows and arrows. Look at his bow. It says arrows in the back of him. One of the things we know about Bhishma Dev is he is one of the 12 Mahajans. He indicated he was one of the 12, but Bhishma is there at number 9. Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, and his good self, Yamaraj. Lord Brahma, Swayambhu, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, that's 3. Kumara, the 4 Kumaras. Kapilo, Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti, not the other guy. And Swayambhuva Manu. That makes 6. Prajanaka Bhishma, Balir Vyasakir Vayam. What else do we know about Grandfather Bhishma? Grandfather Bhishma, before he was Grandfather Bhishma, he was a Vasu. And you might want to know. I may ask you tomorrow. Who are the Vasus? Answer. The Vasus are described very simply, not in detail. There are 33 million demigods of 3 categories, and Vasus is one of those 3 categories. The sons of Aditi, or the Adityas, Vasus, and Rudras. There's categories and there's subcategories of those. Here's the 8 Vasus. Agni, the god of fire. Prithvi, female, goddess of the earth. Vayu, god of the wind. Antariksha, the god of space. Aditya, sun god. Chandrama, moon god, sun god, moon god. Nakshatra, the god of the nakshatras, or the asterisms, or the ruling planets of the stars. And Dyo, the god of the luminous sky. So he's in a separate letter because Dyo is the Vasu that became Bhishma. Now, obviously, some of these have multiple functions, like Vayu, Agni, sun god, moon god, known by different names. They have other functions, but this is in the category of Vasus. And there's some very interesting history where Bhishma, became the son of Mother Ganga and King Santanu. And there's some interesting story connected to how they got together. And Mahabharata describes, it's actually Bhishma Dev himself describes, there was a king who was very, very exalted. One version of Mahabharata says his name was Maha-Abhishek. Another version of Mahabharata is Mahavisha. And he became a perfected soul. One version said he went to Vishnu Loka. Another version says he went to Indraloka. In any case, after some time, he was visiting, paying his respects to to Lord Brahma, and it just so happened that this king, Maha-Abhishek or Mahavisha, saw Mother Ganga, and he saw her in a moment when the wind was blowing and her garments were in disarray, and he was staring at her beauty. And she, in turn, caught his eye, and she was reciprocating eye contact-wise with the king. And Lord Brahma detected this and said, "You two don't belong in the heavenly realm. You have lust desires like people in the earthly realm. You should descend to earthly realm." And they realized that was serious. What they had done was serious, and the consequence of what they had done was serious. She pleaded, Ganga pleaded, pardon. He said, very well, you will descend to the earthly realm, and you'll be celebrated for a long time, but you won't have to remain for a long time. she's still in this celestial region when she happened to come in contact with the Vasus, all 8 of them, including Dio. And what happened was they had made a mistake. They were traveling here and there. They came across the hermitage of Vashishta. While he was away from his hermitage, they saw a celestial Kamadhenu and calf. And the wife of Dio did something like what Sita did. Oh, I want that calf. I want that cow. I have a friend. She's she's the wife of a Brahmana, great sage. And I'd like to give her this wonderful calf. Can you get me the calf? Can you get me the cow? And he was saying, no, this is the property of Sage Vashishta. We can't take the property of a Brahmana. And she kept insisting, and he yielded. So with the help of his 7 other brothers, they stole Vashishta's Kamadhenu, Nandini by name. Vashishta came back to his hermitage. The hermitage was empty, including Nandini wasn't there, because Nandini was capable, going back, as you may know, from the time of Vishwamitra Muni. He also saw the amazing capacity of this celestial cow. In any case, he also wanted the cow. So because they were gone, the cow was gone. He was a seer, he knew what happened, and he cursed them. You should descend into the earthly realm. They came back, or after some time, they heard of the curse. They went back to the rishi, pleaded pardon from the rishi. He was semi-appeased, said, but the curse has been made. You're going to have to descend to the material world. All 7 of you, except this one over here, can return shortly thereafter. You'll be born as sons of Ganga and Santanu by name. And shortly after you're born, you can return back to your heavenly position. But this one over here, Joe, he's going to have to stay for a long, long time. And he'll become a celebrated warrior, and he'll do wonderful pastimes, and then he can return. And so, according to one version of Mahabharata, Ganga saw the Vasus. They looked very sad, and she asked what happened. They said what happened, and they made a request. You're going to become the mother of each of us. Could you make an arrangement that shortly after we're born, you deposit us in the river Ganga, and then we can return after that? She said, I can do that for you, sure. So they all descended, but not immediately at once. She descended, and later came to know that Maha Abhishek became reborn as the son of King Pratipa. So the way Mahabharata is a little involved, as Mahabharata stories weave this way and that way. Ganga was traveling about here and there, the earthly plane. She saw this king who was engaged in, we'll see it, the genealogy chart shortly, but Pratipa was engaged in austerity, and she became very attracted to him. And so she sat on his right thigh while he was engaged in austerity, and pretty directly said, can you become my husband? I'll serve you faithfully, and so forth. He said, sorry, you sat on my right thigh, which is the place for a daughter-in-law to sit. So that means you may be the husband, the wife of my son. So it was foretold
that she would become the wife of his son. So in this painting, it shows her son, excuse me, his son, Santanu, the son of Pratipa. As he was moving about here and there, he saw Ganga, and it was an interview. And she said, yes, I can marry you, but there's some conditions. What's that? Any woman that's getting married would like this condition. No matter what I say or what I do, you'll never object. Oh, I can easily promise that one, sure. And you'll never speak a harsh word. That's easier than the first one, but sure. And so they got married. And after some time, there was a child, a young son, that was born. It was one of the Vasus. He didn't know what was going on. She knew what was going on. And shortly after the child was born, she took the child to the river and drowned the child. And poor Santanu couldn't say anything. And child number 2, child number 3, child number 4, up to child number 7. And when it got to child number 8, he said, stop. I said, that's it. You made a promise. See you later, Charlie. Just like that. She didn't say see you later. He said, you can keep your son. No, he said, you're most qualified. You see that he gets trained nicely. So she agreed. But I'm not going to stay here. And you'll see your son again sometime later, after he's a little grown up and nicely trained. So she had the capacity to go to the celestial region, have Vishishta train her, Sukra train her, and Parashurama becomes important later, as you all know. Parashurama was his military teacher. Everything that he knew about using bow and arrow and fighting ways, Parashurama was his teacher. Becomes important later. Some time passed. Santanu was hunting, and he went again by the side of the Ganga, and he saw something that he had never seen. Never seen. The Ganga normally flows very swiftly, and on this particular day, it's hardly a trickle flowing along the Ganga. So he wanted to find out what's the cause of this. So he walked upstream, and as he walked upstream, he saw a young lad that had fired so many arrows into the Ganga that it was like a dam and it stopped the flow of the Ganga. And so he approached the young lad and asked, who are you? And he said, I'm your son. And poof, he just disappeared. And then shortly thereafter, Ganga came and presented, here's your son. I've trained him very nicely. Here's who his teachers have been. He's now for you to look after. I'm going to leave now. And she just disappeared into the Ganga. So there's Santanu with his son, the son of Ganga, and Santanu. And so he was very happy because his son was brilliant and qualified and well trained and, everything. Then something very interesting happened. There's always something very interesting in Mahabharata. I think our younger generation fellows are going to want to read Mahabharata by the time this is done. There's a description of Parashurama. So who's Parashurama? What we know about Parashurama? He is the father of Vyasadeva, and he is the primary author and speaker of Vishnu Purana. The Puranas have different speakers. The Vishnu Purana is one of the Sattvika Puranas and very prominent Puranas, and he is the principal speaker throughout the whole Vishnu Purana. Very vastly learned, very wise, and one day he was in this vicinity and he wanted to cross to the other side of the river, so he got on a boat. And the boat was being conducted by a young lady. The young lady had a name that sounded like what she smelled like. Her name was Ganga. You know what that means, right? She smelled like a fish. Matsya Gandha. Fishy smell. What happened was she was the daughter of a fisherman, and the fisherman thought if she takes up an occupation in life that permits her to have some association with some sadhus, then she may get some blessing from the sadhus, which is what happened. So there's different versions of Mahabharata, but the one I like is this one. As he was crossing the Ganga, he was doing some astrological calculation, and he calculated right now is the moment where an incarnation of Krishna is going to appear. And so he requested Matsya Gandha, could you be the mother and I'll be the father? She looked at him like, excuse me. They said, why? The astrological calculation is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord is going to appear, and you can be the mother. And she said, but I'm not married, so how can I have a child? And he said, don't worry, there's a way that your virginity won't be lost, something like what happened in Kunti. And she said, well, we're right in the middle of the river and everyone's going to see what we're doing and how's that going to work? And she said, don't worry. He said, don't worry. I'll create an island that will be invisible to others to see. And then she said, well, if I'm pregnant, then I'll be walking around pregnant for 9 months and everyone will see. He said, don't worry. The child will be born instantly. Really? He's Parashurama, and she accepted his proposal. And so, as a result, the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord, with the name Krishna, Dvaipayana Vyas. Dvaipayana indicating he was born on a dvipa, or an island, that was created by mystical power of Parashurama. And when the child was instantly born, Vyasadeva was the child, he gave her 3 benedictions. Because of accepting the service, his fishy smell will go away. And instead, the fragrance of your body will be like musk and will carry far distance. You'll be a very fragrant smelling young girl. Yay, she was very happy with that. And
another is your son, by your actual marriage, will become the king. And what was the third benediction? There's 2. There's the third one. Well, so he gave her the name Satyavati. So Satyavati was surprised.
she went back and told Daddy, guess what happened today? he told her. So her father, the fisherman, was now, because the fragrance of her body proves she did just make up the story, that her son will become the king. Some time passed. She continued the same occupation of being a boat conveyor, carrying people across the river. And one time, King Santanu came, and he wanted conveyance across the river.
He became charmed by, it was her beauty. That was her third. Yes. Her bodily features become very beautiful. And the fragrance like musk, and her son would become the king. So Santanu became very attracted to her, and, let's get married. What do you think? And she said, you have to ask my father. I can't agree. You have to ask my father. So the king went to the fisherman, asked the fisherman, may I marry your daughter? You know the story. Most of everybody here knows the story. And so the fisherman said no. He said, what? Excuse me, I'm the king. And you're a fisherman, and I'm asking for the hand of your daughter in marriage. He said, no. Why not? Because my daughter will have a son who will become the king. And you already have a son. Deva Vrata is your son, and the law is the firstborn son will become the next king. So I'm sorry, the answer is no. And Santanu became very unhappy. And when he went back to the royal palace, it was boo-hoo Santanu. He was really sad and morose and not his normal self. And so his son understood something's wrong with Dad. So he asked the ministers, what happened? And the ministers said, what happened? He wants to marry Satyavati, but the fisherman won't allow it. So the son, Deva Rata, some say Deva Rata, some say Deva Vrata, but in any case, he went back to the fisherman's home by the side of the river, and he asked the fisherman, could you please agree to have my father marry your daughter? He said, no. But he's the king. But my daughter will become the mother of the next king, and you're already in line to become the next king. So he took a vow that I'll not become the king. And now can my father marry your daughter? He said, no. Why not? Because if you get married and your son is born first before my daughter's son is born, then your son will become the next king. So the answer is no. Clear? Yes, clear. 2 no's. And why? That's going to be a question tomorrow, by the way. And so the fisherman said, okay, my daughter can marry your father. And there was a sound, celestial sound, Bhishma, Bhishma. So he became known as Bhishma, one who took a strong vow. Now here's it's a little difficult. It's color-coded, so it's easier to follow. It's still complicated. Over on the far right, you see Vashishta and his disciple, Shakti, and his disciple, Parashara, Muni, who is the father of Vyas. And we see Vyas became then later the father of Vidura. You see that all those lines on the right, it's all color-coded. Let's go way over to the far left. Shurasena, we heard last week, Shurasena was the father of Kunti, but he was also the father of Vasudeva, their brother and sister. And Vasudeva became the father of Krishna, Krishna became the father of Pradumna, Pradumna became the father of Aniruddha, like that. And they're descendants of Yadu way up there. Then let's go to the middle line. There's Ganga. This doesn't work. I'll do this. Ganga and Santanu produced as a child Bhishma. Later, Santanu married Satyavati, and they had two sons. This is important. Vichitravirya Chitrangada. Vichitravirya Chitrangada. Chitrangada died early. That left Vichitravirya having to be married, and Vichitravirya married Ambika and Ambalika. Ambika and Ambalika. And from them, there were sons. Pandu, etc., etc., etc. So the lineage of kings goes this way. Pandu, Draupadi, and the Pandavas, I should say Pandavas, somebody is from Hindi-speaking parts of the world. They make the end, Pandavas. Pandavas. Okay. So there's three sets of, there's Dhritarashtra and the Kauravas. So these are children that came as a result of this marriage over here, the blue line. Anyway, so this is where we are. This is Bhishma was the son of Ganga and Santanu. And later, Satyavati became the mother of Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. That's important coming up. I gotta be really careful about where I walk. Okay. So because Bhishma was the elder brother, he took responsibility to arrange for wife for Vichitravirya. And Bhishma heard about a Swayamvar ceremony for the three daughters of the king of Kashi. So he got on his chariot, zoomed off to Kashi, and kidnapped all three princesses, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. And as he whisked them away, the Shalva and so many other personalities from the Swayamvar ceremony pursued him. He checked them. He was victorious. They got back to the capital. And one of them said, Amba said, I don't want to marry Vichitravirya. I've already given my heart and a promise, a pledge of marriage to Shalva. I want to marry Shalva. Bhishma said, no problem. You can go back and marry Shalva. Your two sisters can stay and marry Vichitravirya. And then it was a hard luck story. She went back. Shalva said, I'm not going to marry you. They had already made their pledge of this and that, and he said, but you've been touched by another man, and I can't marry you. You'll go back and marry the one that touched you, or you marry Vichitravirya. Do what you like. I'm not going to marry you. And that was, created, Shalva comes later, an enmity between him and Krishna. Big time enmity. Because Bhishma was a big devotee of Krishna. And his big devotee Krishna did what he did with his fiancée. Get back mentality among Kshatriyas is very common. When she got back, Vichitavirya was already married, and Bhishma said, you want to marry me, but I've taken a vow that I won't marry. So, you can go to your father's home or go wherever you like, but I'm not going to marry. And if you can convince Shalva, that's okay too. So she's really angry. And what does she do? She decided many things. There's details and details, but one of the things that she did is she wanted to get Parashurama, who was the military guru of Bhishma, to instruct his disciple Bhishma to marry her. Parashurama took sympathy. He went to Bhishma and said, how can you not marry her? She's destitute. You should marry her. And Bhishma said, I've taken a vow. I will not marry, so I can't, that's an instruction I can't follow. There's some lesson involved in all of this. There's many lessons. And Parashurama said, well, if you can't accept my vow, then you have to do battle with me. And he said, very well. In fact, let's go right now to Kurukshetra. It's a nice place to have a battle. This is before the Kurukshetra battle. It's a holy place, and so off they went. And the battle went on for 23 days, and neither could defeat the other one. And Parashurama, as we know, he's not just a powerful warrior, he's an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. He's Shaktivesh avatar. And he couldn't defeat Vasu. So one evening, at the end of the 23rd day's battle, he heard a voice in the sky saying, you're not going to be able to defeat him, he's a Vasu. And so you should just drop your battle axe and let him go. So that he was ready for battle the next day. Bhishma saw Parashurama, said, you fought very nicely. Well done, well done. And you don't have to marry this girl. So I went and told the girl, sorry, even I couldn't defeat Bhishma. Amba's a very determined lady. She then decided to take the course of asceticism. She went to the Himalayas, and very intense austerities, worshipping Lord Shiva. Eventually Lord Shiva came and asked what was that she wanted. And she wanted to have him kill Bhishma. I won't kill Bhishma. Then I want to be born in such a manner that I can kill Bhishma. I want to die and be reborn in such a way I can kill Bhishma. And he said as follows, it's a little delicate, especially in our modern times. You'll be born as the daughter of Drupad, but in the course of your life, you'll become a man. And as a man, you'll kill Bhishma. She accepted it. She entered into fire. She became born as the daughter, Shikandi. And Drupad, meanwhile, didn't know all these things were going on. And he had gotten a benediction that he wanted a son. He wanted a son, but he got a benediction that you'll have a daughter who later will become his son. And he had full faith in the benediction given to him. So he and his wife had a child named Shikandi. And when she became of marriageable age, what to do? But because he was concealing the fact that she was a female, because he wanted a son. And it's like really complicated. So here it goes. There was another king whose son was of marriageable age. And so an arrangement and a request was made that a daughter of marriageable age, and my daughter can marry your son. So Drupad asked his wife what to do. And I have full faith in the benediction that was given, and so a marriage was made to the king's princess, and his son, who was a girl. And they got married. And it didn't take too long. After a little while, the king found out that his daughter's husband was a woman. And he was furious. And he came to attack Drupad with a massive army. Drupad's, what to do. So his daughter, Shikandi, while the battle arrangements are being made, went into the forest, prepared to do anything to get the difficulty that had fallen upon her father, Drupad, relieved. What happened was she came across a yaksha doing austerities in the forest, and she requested the yaksha, "Can you do something unusual? Can you change sexes, please? I'm a female, you're a male. Can we just have a change of sexes for a while? And then this problem that my father's in can be solved, and I'll come back. I promise I'll come back. And we'll change the sexes again." He thought it was okay. Doesn't say what he did, how he did it. But he agreed. So he's staying in the forest. Now he the yaksha, Stuna, had become a woman, and the Shikandi became a man. And Shikandi went back and told her father, "Good news. The king that's come to attack you, let him know that it, in fact, is a man." King Drupad went like, "Phew, what a relief." And so the message went to the attacking king. And the attacking king said, "I'm going to send somebody to go check out your son, daughter, or whatever she is." And it was confirmed, yes, it's a man. So how that sex change happened, and the whole history, it just went under the bridge. So Shikandi went with his new wife. So now he's male. With his new wife, the princess of the king. Meanwhile, this came to the attention of Kuvera, who's the ruler of the Yakshas. And he confronted Stula and said, Stuna, and said, "What have you done?" And he explained, "I was just trying to help out this poor Shikandi girl and yada, yada, yada." And he said, "You just stay in this position. She promised she'll come back and change the sexes with you. You just stay in this condition. Send a message to her. She doesn't have to come back." So Shikandi, the son of Drupad, now a son of Drupad, is married to the king. Who's the king of what place? I forget the place. And so Shikandi is now a man who was Amba in her previous life, and she's now the one that's going to destroy grandfather Bhishma. Because Bhishma tells Duryodhana, because Bhishma is the commander-in-chief of the Kaurava forces. Bhishma is the commander-in-chief of the Kaurava forces. In a private conversation with Duryodhana, he said, "No one can defeat me except Shikandi." And here's the story. This is where he tells the whole story to Duryodhana. Shikandi previously was a woman, born as the daughter of Drupad, but she had a sex change with Stuna. And because she was born a woman, now in the body of a man, I'm not going to fight. So if Shikandi attacks me, I'm not going to defend myself. And that's how he was defeated. On day 10, Shikandi kills grandfather Bhishma. And this is our final slide. Grandfather Bhishma is riddled with arrows fired by Shikandi. And that's the work of Amba, who was in her get-back, very determined get-back mood, and got a benediction from Lord Shiva that she can do it, but in a very complicated way. So I thought, this is slide 23 of 47. So I thought this is a good place to break. And it'll, the end, we'll go to the end. The end is something I shared with a young boy today, visiting. What was it's because his 7 brothers went back to the heavenly region. What was the destination of Dio, who became the Vasu, who took birth as the son of Santanu and had to stay for a long time because he had stolen the Nandini cow of Vashishta. So A or B, he went back to the position of being a Vasu. Or B, he went back to the spiritual world. Now, if you read Mahabharata, he went back to becoming Dio. And if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, he went back to Godhead. You follow? So, Mahabharata, one of the distinctions, there's the history is much the same. There's details, but the history is much the same. The conclusion, the emphasis in Mahabharata, not entirely, but strongly, is virtue, abiding by, very similar to Ramayana, because the two, Ramayana and Mahabharata, they're itihasas. And they have certain characteristics of history. One of the characteristics of the itihasas, unlike the Bhagavatam, is they're chronological. The Bhagavatam is not chronological. There are specific examples, rather than going into it right now, where some event is narrated, and then later an event that took place earlier is narrated. Without going into it, it's transcendentally logical, but not chronological. Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Puranas in general. And the itihasas, they're chronological. And they focus on a certain set of people and a certain history. Whereas the Bhagavatam is many, 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 many different histories at different times and different personalities. And it's still a history, but it's structured differently. And another big emphasis is the largely, not entirely, largely the itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, are emphasizing morality and virtue and proper conduct and dharma. And one who upholds dharma, certain things, and those who violate dharma, other things. And the Bhagavatam is emphasizing, fix your mind on Krishna. And one who fixes their mind on Krishna And in the case of Grandfather Bhishma, we're going to hear more tomorrow. He left his body with his eyes staring at the form of Krishna. And the form of Krishna, according to the Bhagavatam, one sees Krishna in that form that one has particular affection for him. His particular affection, Bhishma Dev's particular affection, was the affection of Krishna becoming the servant of his own devotee, or his quality of Bhaktavatsala, or Parthasarati. It's explicit in the Bhagavatam, in Prabhupada's purports. But he attained Vaikuntha. He didn't just go back to being a Dio in the heavenly region. One of the 33 million demigods. He went back to Godhead because he everything was dedicated to Krishna. So we're going to hear more next 3 days, something further about his life and teachings, and then we'll go directly to chapter 9 and some sections from chapter 9. Getting kind of a nice picture of why he is so regarded and is an exalted, one of the 12 Mahajans. What are some of the teachings that he gave from such an exalted person? Just like Prahlad is one, and what did his teachings, and Bali, what were his teachings, so forth. I want to say one more thing, and then we're going to invite discussion. A not uncommon question, a common question is, because Grandfather Bhishma was such a great devotee, why did he fight on the side of the Kauravas? And he knew all their intrigue and all of their skullduggery and all their bad stuff, Duryodhana and all what he had done, and the cheating and this and that. How could he be on their side? Sometimes it is said that he did so because he was maintained by the royal family, and it's a religious duty. You're maintained by someone. You're an agent of that someone who maintains you, which is it's a dharma. It's a principle of dharma. However, there's paradharma that supersedes dharma, because he's a devotee of Krishna. How can he fight against those who are dear to Krishna? Instead, fight on the side of sinful persons, murderers, and etc., so cheaters and bad, sinful people. And that one answer to that is, it was a mistake, or something that Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam purport, is because Bhishma, didn't protect Draupadi when he could have, should have, he had to suffer in this way. Therefore, whoever you are, whatever the circumstances, protection of women is imperative for a dharmic person. Otherwise, there's consequences. However, further commentary goes like this. He knew perfectly well, without anyone's help, he could have destroyed Duryodhana and his 99 brothers and Karna and you name it. He was so powerful. But he didn't, because he knew why Krishna had appeared, and he wanted the glory to go to Krishna for finishing these heinous personalities. And it was a pleasure that Krishna was deriving and engaging his grandfather Bhishma's, wanting to see Krishna engaging Arjuna in that way. Because he knew, everyone knew. There's this nice section when what's his name? Jayadrath. Jayadrath gets humiliated. Jayadrath tries to kidnap Draupadi. Big mistake. She's married to all 5 Pandavas. He's already married. He was married to the sister of Gandhari. He was married. And he wanted to kidnap Gandhari. Ooh. She punched him in the face. He fell to the ground, bloody mouth. But he was more powerful than she. He tied her up, put her on his chariot, drove away. She called out to her husbands. Bhima happened to be in proximity. He had his club in hand. He was smashing Jayadrath. He was ready to turn him into pulp. Yudhisthira came along and said, spare him. He's the son of a king. Sindhu king is his father. Don't kill him this way. But because he's done such a sinful thing, he is to be punished, but not killed. So they took their swords and gave him a haircut and left 4 or 7 tufts of hair sticking out here and there. Laughed at him purposefully, humiliated him, and said, you're now the slave of Yudhisthira. You can go where you like. He was a bad guy. His life had been spared, but he wanted to get back. He was anyway, what he was doing was worthy of death penalty, but he was spared from the death penalty because he was the son of a king. So he went to the mountains, austerities, Lord Shiva came, and Lord Shiva said, you severe austerities, what is it you would like? I want to defeat the Pandavas in battle. And he had a second desire, according to one version of Mahabharata. Whoever has my head hit the ground, their head will crack in 7 pieces. So Shiva said, you can defeat in battle the other 4, but you can't defeat Krishna, because I can't go against, you can't defeat Arjuna, because I can't go against Krishna. And Arjuna is especially favored by Krishna. I can't go against Krishna. So the other 4 brothers you can defeat in battle, that's okay, but not Arjuna. My point is, everyone knew. Bhishma knew. Shiva knew. Everybody knew. Arjuna is very special. He's a very special person in his relation with Krishna. So don't mess with Arjuna. Duryodhana didn't mind messing with Arjuna. He's that kind of a demon. So grandfather Bhishma, back to why he fought on behalf of the Kauravas. He wanted Krishna and Arjuna to demolish the Kauravas. He wanted the honor to go to Arjuna, his dear devotee and friend. Just like he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, not to others, not to Bhishma, not to anybody else. Because how close was that relationship with Arjuna? So he did what he did, including the vow that he took. We'll hear some more tomorrow. Mahabharata ki jai. Grandfather Bhishma ki jai. Anything else? You want to ask some questions? Yes.
A couple of questions. The first is, I found it interesting that in the translation of the verse that lists the 12 Mahajans, Narada is referred to as Bhagavan Narada.
Yeah.
Could you please explain that?
Sometimes, yes. In many cases, Prabhupada says the term Bhagavan is exclusive, reserved for Krishna. However, sometimes great personalities who have powers invested by Bhagavan are also called Bhagavan. It's exception. It's not the rule.
Because in that list is also Kapila Dev.
Yeah.
So there's also Bhagavan. And in the overall scheme of Canto 1 being titled Creation, I'm sure there is a transcendental logic to how the scene changes from Queen Kunti to Bhishma Dev lying on the bed of arrows. I'm just wondering if you could explain. I mean, it can't be random.
That's a nice question. I've never thought about it. So, and my processor is moving slowly by nature, and I don't recall reading anything that it explains how, I mean, your question specifically and how it connects with the theme of the chapter, the creation. There are many things that don't direct in that first canto deal with creation per se. So why the title of creation? Not how do they fit into it? I don't have an idea. Do you have any idea? Would you like a homework assignment?
Goranj, the third chapter is Krishna as a source of all incarnations.
Yeah.
So that seems very
That's it. Yeah. But you asked a question I don't have the answer to. You see if you can find the answer. If you don't find it, that's okay. But I don't. That's it.
So that was part of the question, but also, how does the scene change? You know, you mentioned it's not chronological, but there's a transcendental logic in how the Bhagavatam progresses. So what is that transcendental logic?
Well, for this between 8 and 9 is easy. It's highlighting, as you saw the very first slide, he's a pure devotee of Krishna, and Kunti's a pure devotee of Krishna. The mood is quite different, the role is quite different, but the pure devotee. So there's varieties of pure devotion. And one of the things that we heard in the Queen Kunti section is one should not think that the activities of the Pandavas and Kunti is anything less important than the activities of the gopis. You know, don't go to the 10th canto and think that's where it's all happening. They're pure devotees. It's the foundation. Okay. No, over here. She's got the mic. Go ahead. We have 2 mics. Just hang on. We'll get to you. Over here.
I have 2 questions
Okay.
and 2 comments. So I'll keep the comments short. One was Mataji's question about the Madhupati. In Madhupati, the yesterday.
Yes.
So in Madhurashtakam, also the word Madhupate, Madhuradipate Rakhila Madhuram.
Yes.
So that's the Lord of Sweetness. I was thinking that's one additional meaning.
That's additional meaning for sure.
And regarding this chapter, the link in my mind was, yesterday Queen Kunti asked him to stay, but then Yudhishthir Maharaj, when he asked him to stay, the Lord stayed, and then naturally next he's on his way to the battlefield to seek grandfather Bhishma and receive instructions from him. That's how I was thinking it flows from one chapter to the other.
It's interesting. It's not how I see it, but it's interesting.
So my question, Maharaj, now Arjuna is an eternal associate of the Lord,
Who is?
Arjuna.
Arjuna, yes.
But in the history that you just spoke about Bhishma Dev, is it that he has attained perfection, or is he also considered eternal associate of the Lord?
Well, one who is a demigod descending, becoming a resident of Vaikuntha is not an eternal associate.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to confirm. Because he was also in the Mahajanas category.
So I think Mahajan doesn't mean eternal associate.
Okay. So my last is, I'm wondering if this is the right place to ask the question, but this is about the non-binary gender. And, I was thinking, when I taught in my, in the school, there was this whole third pronoun, and then that student wasn't, it had to be them, they, and come summer, when in fall, it was different. And I have heard, couple of my, and it is there in our society.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, people who are dealing with young people are also, and my husband was sharing, even in his workplace, it happened. Your
Yeah. Okay.
so anyway, the point is that, is there like one comfort from our shastras is that, yes, everybody is a spirit soul, and so respect goes to that. So that foundation is clear. But if ISKCON has anything, or you have any thoughts further?
Next question. I mean, I don't know if ISKCON has a position. I don't go there. There's groups of people. I mean, just on the gender topic, it could make the whole issue of should women become guru could break ISKCON in at least two pieces. And there's other issues that could break ISKCON into more than one piece. But that's probably the biggest one currently. So the gender issue, I don't know anybody. There may be some people, not maybe, I'm sure there's some people that think it's just cool. Because after all, we're spirit soul. So what's the gender deal anyways? Because we're spirit soul. And some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot 3 days old. It's the illusion anyway you cut it, so it's not a big deal. And then there's others, I imagine, well, I won't name names, there's some people that have views like that. Just fine. So is there is composition? I don't have any idea. I don't get involved with those kinds of things. I only hear peripherally these other things. My personal comment is it's not an unknown thing, even in Vedic culture. There's names for persons who are that third gender persons. It existed during Vedic times, but it was an anomaly, and it wasn't like in your face, and you have to change your language and all those things. It was just, there was a place for those people, and they were those people. And it's just part of society. Now, how do you organize society with a third gender? Then you just get liberalism and emotionalism and anything but your spirit soul. The purpose of life is to come to realize your spiritual identity, not your gender favoritism. So, next. You have to be a teenager, that's all.
So Maharaj, you described
See, it works.
a few kidnappings.
Yeah.
Was it morally acceptable?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like
Oh, yeah. It was, for example, when Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra, Bhima was furious. And Krishna went to his elder brother, because the elder brother, always the elder brother, he had such regard for Krishna. And Krishna said, it's cool. And he said, it's noble for a Kshatriya to kidnap and marry on that basis. It's noble. It's an honor. It's not a dishonor. And if he can get away with it, then he may not get away with it. But it's noble. So there are things that Kshatriyas have a license for that's noble. Now, I don't know what the rules are. Perhaps there's some rules. Probably there's some rules. But I don't know what those rules are. I just, know that much. It's noble. Honorable. Something else.
Maharaj, we see that Amba has this vengeance, intense vengeance towards Bhishma, and she's justified, but then her problem is that she's seeing Bhishma as the cause of her suffering.
Yes.
And after everything fails and they're not able to have Bhishma convince him to marry her, and I'm sure the sages tried to convince her that you should accept this as destiny.
Yes, and left that out.
But she wasn't able to overcome that anger, and it's like I was just thinking, Dhruva Maharaj, when he has that anger, Suniti tells him that give up your anger and then go out and find the Lord. And to some degree, I think he was able to, and this is why he finds the Lord. But Amba, she just, she goes and meditates on, Lord Shiva, and I think it was Lord Shiva, and still she's not able to overcome it. So I guess this is just a question, or just curious about overcoming anarthas. It's like she's not able to overcome it, though she has good advice and she's also meditating on the Lord, but she holds on to it.
I have a different perspective. The different perspective is A, B, and C. When his mother said, she didn't exactly say, give up your anger. She said, you want a kingdom, but I can't help you. I have no position with your husband, with your father, and I can't help you. And if you want a kingdom, you want a kingdom that bad, the only thing I can recommend is Vishnu. He can do anything. Then I'm going to go find Vishnu. Then Narada came. Narada gave him the transcendental mode of goodness advice. Let go of this anger. You can't find Vishnu holding on to anger. And his reply was, good advice, but I can't follow it. I'm Kshatriya spirited. I want a kingdom. I want to get back. Not just a kingdom. Better than my father's father's father. That kind of kingdom. That's what I want. That's the spiritual world. So then he went and did what Narada told him to do with that same determination. But the place where he took that was Vishnu, not Lord Shiva. And gradually, through mantra and the austerities and the mercy of Narada,
he overcame that motive where he had no longer had that motive. And then when he saw not Lord Shiva, but he saw Vishnu, gone. That's my understanding of the sequence. Whereas, he like Amba, he wasn't willing to let go of the get back. But he went to the right place, Vishnu, through the agency of his mother. And then Narada, then Vishnu. Thus he was able to overcome the Kshatriya chivalry spirit. My understanding, at least. Yeah.
I was wondering that the Devatas cannot go back to Godhead, that means from the higher planetary systems. So as Bhishmadev was one of the Vasus, he has to come to the planet Earth, and then that's the way he can go back to Godhead. That's what the arrangement. I just want to know.
I don't think that's a correct assumption. The premise, from what I've just heard, what you said is, the premise is demigods can't go back to Godhead. And therefore, Bhishma was able, because he became the earthly realm and then practiced bhakti and went back to Godhead. So I don't know, it's a given that demigods can't become pure in devotion. I don't know if that's a given. This is, to my understanding, is anyone, at least anyone in a human form. Then comes here's another question. You know the answer to this one? There's 8,400,000 species, 400,000 of their human are demigods in the 400,000 human category, or there's some other category. What species are the demigods? Do you have the answer to that question? I'm asking Balaram Prasad.
I think they're one of the 1 in 400,000
Yeah,
species.
that's my understanding. So why they can't? There's no restriction. There's things that must happen, mercy and etc., 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 cultivation of the right character and qualification, but it's not a restriction. Tendency is proud, enjoying spirit. But can one overcome that? Certainly one can overcome that. Ahoitukiya pratyata yatma suprasidati. There's no material cause or impediment.
When you spoke about Madhvacharya, he was a Vayu, right? So
Yes.
So he was from a higher planet system. As we know, he is a mixed devotee, but Madhvacharya was a pure devotee.
That's okay.
In that context, I was thinking, maybe he has to come to the planet Earth and.
Nice try.
Maharaja, I was thinking, you mentioned how Mahabharata deals with more dharmic issues versus Srimad Bhagavatam, which deals with dharma in a way to please Krishna. But where does...
That's a very broad statement, and there's exceptions to the broad statement. But go ahead.
I was wondering, where does Ramayana fit in? Is it just in moral stories, or where does it... How does it...
Yeah, no, it's not moral. It's Maryada Purushottama, the perfect upholder of Dharma. A man, there's different Ramayanas. But the Valmiki Ramayana, this is my understanding from those that know much more about Ramayana than I do, he's viewed as the ideal human, who happens to be Vishnu. But the lens of speaking about him and portraying him through Ramayana is the ideal human that has a human-like emotions, and but he never departs from virtue and so forth. So that's how the lens through which Valmiki Ramayana views Ram, and thus Ramayana. But at the end, the in the Balakanda, how he descends and where he goes when he departs, it's Vaikuntha. But the Supreme Lord appearing as a perfect human, upholding Dharma and teaching by his actions and his words. Perfect. And then his brothers and so forth. Okay? Way in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question. You mentioned that those 8 Vasus,
Yeah.
they were sent to earthly,
They offended Vishishta.
right, and then they were sent. So I'm just wondering, who takes their place? Like Vayu, sun god, moon god.
Did they hang out a sign on the door saying, taking a one lifetime vacation and back soon? There's 2 possibilities, and there's probably more than 2 possibilities. Something that's commonly written by our acharyas is that devas can manifest portions of themselves under the indication of the Supreme Lord to do so. The portion from the morning class, the angsa topic, remember? Angsa means a portion or part. Mami bhangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana angsa, part. Fragmental part or plenary part. But angsa is the Sanskrit term. So portions of those individuals can appear. And it doesn't leave a vacancy. It says the portion of those, it doesn't mean like they cut off a limb or something. It just means like a bhava expansion, so to speak, appears. Like when Krishna appears, he requested the demigods to take birth on earth first to assist him in his pastimes. Different because it was a request of the Supreme Lord as opposed to a curse of Vishishta. But they didn't hang up a sign saying, we're taking a break because Krishna is appearing on earth. Expansions of themselves. And then those expansions returned. When Krishna's pastimes were over, he sent them back. That was exactly what the Prabhas battle was about. They went so they can go back, because who could send them back? So with Vishishta, there's not commentary similar to what I just described, that I'm aware of at least. And so there are 2 possibilities. Here's a different one. When Yamaraj left his abode, someone took his place, right? And he became Vidura. Someone else took his place. And then when he returned, that person said, yeah, sure, here's your seat back. So that's another possibility. But in the case of the Vasus, it doesn't say, did somebody take their place, or did an angsa of them descend? Doesn't say.
Thank you, Maharaj.
you have something online. Pass the microphone up this way.
Question was about how do we explain the seeming infidelities, even that came up during this discussion.
Which one?
Shantanu,
Huh? Which one?
King Shantanu and infidelity. And
What's infidelity?
just
What?
with Ganga, for instance, he was swayed by a woman he wasn't married, and then they had a child outside of marriage.
No. They were married. She accepted. He proposed. She accepted. They married. The infidelity was in Brahmaloka. She glanced at the king, and he glanced at her, and woo, and Brahma caught it. So he cursed them. That was the infidelity and the consequences.
This question is from Karunanidhi Prabhu. Prabhupada mentioned in his purport in first canto that Bhishma Pitamaha concentrated on four-handed form of Narayana.
Yes.
And he went back to Vaikuntha.
Yes.
The question is, why did he not desire to have darshan of Supreme Lord Krishna to go back to Goloka Vrindavan, being a Mahajan?
Because he had affinity for four-armed Narayan or Parthasarati. You know, that's pure devotees don't have to want to go back to Goloka. They want to be with the Lord that pleases them most. So you ask a Ram Bhakta, how come you have Ram Bhakti? What's wrong with you? It's their devotion. Next.
This question is from Vamsi Krishna Prabhu. Few events after Gandhari's marriage, Bhishmadev arrested Shakuni and his brothers. This incited Shakuni later to destroy Kurus. Could you explain spiritual reasons, if any?
Yeah. Krishna wanted to destroy the demons because they were harassing the devotees. So the different arrangements were made to fulfill that. And, you know, Krishna doesn't need justification from anybody how he does what he does. He doesn't have to. He can make rules and break rules. He doesn't have to follow anybody's rules. So he's making arrangements. That the essence is, he's making arrangements to destroy the demoniac population on earth. That's why he descended. So he can do it however he likes. No. Yeah. I don't know if there's a particular why did he do it this way instead of that way kind of question that's being asked. Uh-oh. There's the microphone. Okay. One more. Go ahead. Let's try to see if the squealing continues.
Radha Kund Mataji is asking, did Shikandi get any reaction
of her action of being the cause of the death of a great devotee of the Lord, Bhishmadev, what was her final destination?
There's no information what her final destination was. The step back from that question and the big picture is Krishna's orchestrating wonderful arrangements for the pleasure of his devotees, including Grandfather Bhishma, because the desire of everyone has to die. Grandfather Bhishma wanted to die seeing the face of Krishna. So the arrangement was made. So and Bhishma Dev, his happiness was Krishna's happiness, and Krishna's happiness was the Pandavas were protected. King Yudhishthira is the world. He can now depart the world knowing that a virtuous king is ruling the world. Yudhishthira, and so that was accomplished. So the Pandavas came with Krishna to see Grandfather Bhishma and the bed of arrows. So Shikandi was just an instrument for that to happen, because who can, if even Parashurama can't defeat, what's Shikandi going to do? But Shikandi did, because Bhishma wouldn't fight. So there was a function that she had to play, or he had to play, Shikandi had to play, in the demise of Grandfather Bhishma. And Grandfather Bhishma's happiness was the Pandavas will be victorious and I'll see Krishna at the time of death. So both arrangements, and so they came before Grandfather Bhishma purposefully. This is what we're going to be discussing tomorrow. Decked out in royal attire. They're the royal family now, officially. So all the ornaments and this and that and the other thing, the crowns and all the paraphernalia of kingship. That's what Grandfather Bhishma wanted. What he wants is Krishna's happiness. That's the pure devotee's desire. Krishna's happiness. And he has a particular flavor of Krishna's happiness. Like the Karunanidhi's earlier question. He's not wanting to go to Krishna Loka. He's wanting to go to be with four-armed Narayana, or the form of Parthasarathi, or the dear friend of Arjuna. That's his happiness, because that's Krishna's happiness. And don't say one should not, going back to what we heard yesterday, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, Prabhupada's statement, do not think that the interest in the activities of the Pandavas and Kunti is anything less than the activities of Krishna and the gopis in Vrindavan performing rasa dance. The mood of pure love is different, but it's not less. So from a rasa point of view, one can say, but from the point of purity, they're on the same platform, and Grandfather Bhishma is on the same platform. Grandfather Bhishma has special appreciation for Krishna and for the residents of Vrindavan. That's in his heart, but that's not what he did. He's on the battlefield standing before Krishna and Arjuna, happy as anything, because it's Krishna's happiness that he's interested in. And that's the gift of Krishna's happiness that he's gifted with. And he's very happy. Anything else? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Why not?
Outside of this context?
No.
Okay.
Ask tomorrow morning. You come for the morning class? Okay, last question. Shri Radhika. one way to boost attendance at the morning class.
Guru Maharaj, Bhishma Dev is an eternal associate of the Lord in chivalrous rasa. So is there a place for his mood and for him when the Lord incarnates again as Lord Gauranga?
I don't know if he's an eternal associate. I mean, that's a presumption. That kind of embedded in the earlier question because he was Joe, and now he became what he became. But there's a place for him in Vaikuntha, but a place where there's a particular mood. I mean, by reading Brihat Bhagavatamrita and Gopakumar's standing at the gates of Vaikuntha, waiting for the permission for him to enter, and he sees what he sees and describes what he describes, there's lots of variegatedness in Vaikuntha. But it's, the principle is exclusive devotion to the personality of Godhead, and people assume forms like they have love for the Lord. So that's 301 literature. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah.